the Gulf Coast of Florida. I do want to bring in Robert Moyeda, the acting meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service in Miami, to talk about the latest path there, but also a lot of other information as the storm does get closer and closer to Florida. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Of course. So first off, show me the latest path. What are we talking about as the storm does get closer to Florida?
Yeah, well, as of the 11 a.m. advisory, the center of the storm is still, a decent distance to the west of the Florida Peninsula. However, it is moving to the north, and it's actually moving at a pretty decent speed, about 14 miles an hour. And we actually expect that forward speed to increase here over the next several hours as Idalia continues that northward motion and approaches the Florida west coast tonight and early tomorrow. So conditions are only going to get worse from here on out along the west coast of Florida. We are currently seeing some rain bands first across the lower Florida Keys, and then now along the southwest Florida coast. And some of those rain bands are already producing tropical storm force winds and even some potential tornadoes. So we have to be on the lookout for that. And those conditions are going to be spreading northward and and getting worse as we go through the night. And then especially as the storm makes landfall tomorrow as a major hurricane in the Florida Big Bend area.
And explain the process of rapid intensification. A lot of us have heard the term used a lot over the last several days, especially when we're talking about Idalia. How does this all factor into the strength of the storm as it does get closer to Florida?
Yeah, there are a few factors, one of them being the very warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico, so that's certainly a key contributor. But also we need the winds have to be light enough in the top of the storm. So in other words, that allows the energy of the storm that's rising up through the eye to evacuate out of the storm. So the combination of the very warm waters and unfortunately winds aloft that are conducive for this rapid intensification process to what we think will happen here over the next few hours. That's why we have the forecast of a major hurricane, Category 3. It could even be a little bit more than that when it makes landfall tomorrow morning in the Florida Big Bend.
And that's what I was going to ask, as far as factors that could play into an even stronger storm, because we've mentioned a major Category 3 hurricane, but it is possible it could strengthen even further. Category 4, possibly Category 5?
Well, it's hard to give an upper limit, but you always have to consider, certainly we're forecasting a Category 3, but the official forecast is not too far from a Category 4. So just a little bit more strengthening than what we're forecasting could take it up to a Category 4. But nevertheless, major hurricane expected to make landfall tomorrow morning. So it's it's a serious situation, and we hope that people, especially in the warning area from the Tampa Bay area northward, are taking precautions and doing what they have to do, following the advice from local officials.
One thing I wanted to ask you, we kind of talked about this, but landfall expected earlier on tomorrow morning. Is it possible that the storm slows down, picks up speed as of right now? Because it looks like it has picked up speed over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, that's been the general trend with the last couple of forecasts. Like to say about the last 12 hours or so. As the storm gets closer to land, our confidence increases that much more when it comes to not only the location but the timing. But there could always be a few hours difference here or there. So we don't want people to focus too much on that exact point at that exact time. It could easily be just a little bit to the left or a little bit to the west or a little bit to the east, a little bit sooner or faster. Just, in general, though, the main message here is the west coast of Florida, Big Bend area has a serious, situation going on right now. Hurricane warnings in effect and the prospects of a major hurricane hitting that area early tomorrow morning.
And what do you say to folks who say, we were raised in Florida, we've seen all these tropical storms, all these hurricanes, really just a lot of tropical systems that have moved through. It's okay, we don't need to evacuate, no big deal. What do you say to folks who argue that's the case?
Well, I would ask those same people, when was the last time you went through a Category 3 or higher hurricane? And probably the answer would be never. So this is not a usual storm. This is expected to be a very big hurricane. We all saw what happened with Hurricane Ian last year, of course, farther down the coast, but we saw what happened there. So we're not saying we're comparing this directly to Ian, but what we are saying is that this is presenting a storm surge threat that is not too far off from what Ian did last year. So the bottom line is people need to be heeding these hurricane and storm surge warnings. They need to be heeding the advice of the local officials. And if the local officials are telling you to evacuate, please do so. Please do so as soon as you can, because we're really running out of time.
My last question for you here. A lot of time folks will say, well, it's a category 1, 2, 3, but it's also important to remember that it's not just about the wind, but also about the amount of water, the amount of rainfall, right?
Yeah, and especially in this case, the storm surge is a particularly serious situation. We're forecasting anywhere from 10 to 15 feet of storm surge inundation or storm surge flooding above ground level over parts of this Big Bend area. So at 10 to 15 feet, that's not just life-threatening. That's potentially catastrophic levels of flooding. So it just underscores the message of if you're in the warning area and your local officials are telling you to evacuate and you haven't done so, please do so now. Please do so as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help break all this down for us. It's a situation that we're all tracking very closely here. Is there anything else that you want to add before I let you go?
Yeah, again, just want to reemphasize the point. Follow the advice of local officials. If you're especially in that warning area from the Tampa Bay area, northward around the Big Bend of Florida, even into parts of the Florida Panhandle, you need to be really, really paying close attention. You need to be finalizing preparations today, because by tonight it's going to be too late. So we have a few hours of daylight today. Take advantage of that. Finish your preparations. And if you're in an evacuation zone and your local officials are telling you to evacuate, please do so. Do so as soon as you safely can.
All right. Robert Moyeda there, the acting meteorologist in charge at the National Weather Service in Miami. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, and I do want to take you back out to a live look from our X-RAD radar system. That is Hurricane Idalia right there on your screen. The latest update from the National Hurricane Center. The storm has picked up a little bit of speed there, moving north at 14 miles per hour. Idalia currently has maximum sustained winds of 85 miles per hour, which is a Category 1. The storm reaches Category 2 strength when maximum sustained winds reach 96 miles per hour or higher. However, Idalia is expected to undergo some rapid intensification and could make landfall as a Category 3 major hurricane. The latest advisory shows landfall early tomorrow morning as a major hurricane, but do remember the storm could pick up speed at any time, so we are going to keep you updated right here on Live Now from Fox. It is now 12:12 over on the East Coast and 9:12 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here to bring you all of your top stories from across the country and across the world. Let's head to a quick 2-minute commercial break, the first one of the hour, and on